What's up, guys? PowerManiac720 here, and I have for you round 8 from Swiss rounds of Philadelphia Regionals 2014. So I'm 5-2 at this point in the tournament, and I'm playing Ezrael, whose real name is Johnathan Evans. He is 6-1 at this point, so he got paired down to play me. I got paired up to play him. So I don't know if that means I was the best 5-2 or the worst 5-2 at that point. So if someone wants to clarify that for me, that'd be awesome. So without further ado, here is our battle. So I knew that Ezrael, I've heard about his name around the community. I know he's a high-ranking player, good player. So anyway, I lead Talonflame and Gardevoir, and he leads Aerodactyl and Garchomp. Aerodactyl Garchomp is something I looked into, as you'll see in my team report, because I like the idea of going Smackdown Earthquake with the two of them, but I ended up not running it because it made me really weak to rain, and it pretty much made a rain matchup like auto loss. So I set up Tailwind immediately because two fast Pokemon on the field, I got to outspeed them. He goes for a Rock Slide. Even though my Talonflame has Shardy Berry, it still wouldn't have survived that. So I'm praying right now that my Gardevoir doesn't flinch, and thank God it doesn't, because now I get to hit the Moonblast. His face kind of dropped when he saw this because he wasn't expecting me to outspeed him. He just kind of assumed I wasn't Scarf. I was really worried that he was going to Sky Drop me that turn, but luckily he didn't. So at this point, I was expecting his Bisharp to Sucker Punch, so I went for a Quick Guard and a Moonblast on his Bisharp, and it didn't quite pan out that way, as you'll see. Ended up much worse for me. So his Aerodactyl goes to the Rock Slide, but of course, coming off like base 130, 135, whatever it is, Rock Slide, Stab, not even Shardy Berry is going to help Talonflame. And it, of course, KOs Gardevoir as well. It did over half the turn before. So now I'm down to a 3-on-2. I have the 2. And I'm a little concerned because I'm just a little concerned. I don't know. I don't look like I'm in the best position. I do have Tailwind up, thank God, which is nice. So he switches out Bisharp and for Zapdos. So I feel a little better knowing that if I can get to a one-on-one with Zapdos with Rotom, I should have the match won because, let's face it, most Zapdos run Thunderbolt and HP Ice for attacks. So he protects Aerodactyl. I'm sure he's expecting me to, I'm sure he's expecting me to Fake Out. So I go for the Hammer Arm because I was going for it on Bisharp. Hits Zapdos instead. Does a critical hit there is nice. Does a decent chunk of damage. So he withdraws Aerodactyl. I actually double targeted that spot because I wanted to pick up the KO on Aerodactyl because it's just protected. So if he wanted to go for the double protect and got it off, like, good for him. That'd be a good move on his part. So I'm guessing he switched out and Volt Switch, expecting me to use Return on that slot, and Aerodactyl of course resists Return. But I just double targeted Bisharp's spot, which worked out really well for me. Even though Bisharp's a Steel type, Kangaskhan Return is too strong, and Bisharp's fairly frail. So I've got it down to a 2-on-2. My Tailwind peters out, unfortunately, which kind of sucks, but I'm in pretty good shape, better shape than I could be. So he goes for the Thunderbolt on Kangaskhan, and he also goes for a Rock Slide, of course. The Rock Slide does huge damage to Rotom. It brings me down to 47 HP. I'm really praying that I did not flinch, because that would cost me. The match would be over if I flinched. But luckily I didn't. I just have to make sure the Thunderbolt KOs. I have a pretty good amount of special attack invested, and it is enough to KO. So now I'm down to a 1-on-1, and I just have to hope I survive the Thunderbolt, and then I'm able to, first of all, land the Overheat and then KO with it. So I do survive the Thunderbolt with 8 HP. I go for the Overheat and it hits. I just sit there and pray that it's enough to KO, and I get a critical hit, so it is more than enough. For those of you wondering, he had 66% HP left, and Overheat versus his Zapdos, he told me his spread, and I did the calculations, and it does 61% to 72%, like roughly give or take a tenth of a percent here or there. So it would have been enough to possibly KO, but it wasn't a guaranteed KO. But the critical hit, of course, made it guaranteed. So that was round 8 versus Ezrael. At this point, I'm 6-2 and 1 win away from potentially making top cut. So stay tuned for round 9.